So welcome everyone to another episode of our knowledge-based podcast series. This time we have with us Swapnil Kabra. Swapnil is an active investor in the market. He's a chartered accountant and he also runs an academy for CA students. So welcome Swapnil.
Hi, thanks.
Over the years, I have observed Swapnil share a lot of good research on some of the very interesting businesses very early on in the journey. So figuring out how he gets those businesses early on is what we are trying to figure it out in this podcast. Before we begin, a quick disclosure. Search Capital is a trade name, brand name used by me, Ankush Agrawal. I'm a SEBI registered individual research analyst. Nothing that we discuss in this phone call or on this podcast is recommendation. Kindly read full disclosure in the description below. Swapnil, do you have any form of SEBI registration? No.
I'm not registered.
Swapnil is not registered. So Swapnil, let's start from the beginning. Like how and when you started in the markets, how the journey has been, and what were some of the key learnings that shaped you as an investor early on? You can talk about it.
Yeah, so actually, I'm a chartered accountant, so I started very early, back in 2011. But frankly speaking, at that time, I was not aware about my process and how to begin with, screening the stocks and how to have the conviction of putting more money into the stocks. So as any other investor, I started with watching, TV channels like CNBC and Z Business and all. But the real journey started just before COVID, because at that time, my portfolio was not going anywhere. So my broker came to me and he was saying me, कि स्वप्निल यार तेरा तो बहुत loss हो रहा है. You must sit down and see कि what strategy will work for you, right? So at that time I took this very seriously and I was like, नहीं यार थोड़ा और conviction चाहिए कोई भी stock को purchase करने से पहले, and I must know everything about the stock that I'm buying. So I changed my strategy and now I'm not into many stocks. So at that time I was actually having a lot of stocks in my portfolio. I used to have around 50, 60 stocks. But then, being a full-time teacher in the academy, I was not having much time to track those stocks. So I changed my strategy and I thought, यार 15-20 stocks ही सही, but ऐसे stocks लेना है जिसके बारे में I can track everything, right? मतलब conference call अगर company कर रही है तो I should be knowing कि मेरे stock में क्या चल रहा है. So I changed my strategy and I think this really helped me to shape my strategy.
So, Swapnil, was there a point in between wherein you got that early success, a time when you change your strategy, you got that early success, and then you realize, okay, this is how that it needs to be done, and I'm now confident that I can do this.
Yes, exactly. So what happened is, even when I joined Twitter and I got to know about many industries that are actually clicking. So I thought, why not to just study the entire industry and then choose from the industry what is the best play out there. So what I did is whenever I invest in a stock, I try to analyze every player in the industry. I try to understand the entire value chain. So that helped me a lot as an investor to see really which stock to pick. And early success I got in many stocks, I was there in tips industries as well. So also I was there in a company called as Brand Concepts. So it really helps when you study the entire value chain, and that really helped me a lot because that got me going कि यार पर्टिकुलर स्टॉक जो है जो मैं पिक कर रहा हूँ है ना, उसमें मैं ज्यादा कन्विक्शन से पैसा इन्वेस्ट कर सकता हूँ. So that is what really helped me a lot.
Right. So basically, if I have to talk about investing framework of yours, it's broadly, you figure out if an industry looks good to you, and then you try to figure out what everything else that is there in that, and then you figure out one winner out of it is broadly what you try to do.
Correct.
So, Swapnil, is there a preference of which kind of businesses or industry or value chain that you're interested in?
Yeah, actually, I'm not a very intelligent investor. I think there are a lot of many intelligent investors out there who understand a lot of difficult industries. So I personally prefer to be in those industries which are very easy and simple to understand. For instance, I do not understand anything related to pharma or chemicals per se. So because I think there are too many moving parts there, and to track those business, it requires really some special skills. So I try to be in those businesses which are actually very easy to understand. And if I can explain that business or business model to anyone else, I think that is something that suits me. So I generally prefer those businesses which are very simple, easy, not too many moving parts. So that really helps me to understand what is going on in the industry.
Gotcha. So, Swapnil, how do you split your time, like between your academy and between the investing? Like, is it that during the first half of the day, since the market is on, you're into investing, and then the evening is your academy part? How is it? How does it work for you?
No, actually, my classes timings are really flexible. So whatever time I
Yeah.
get, I try to figure out, what is there, what is there to study. So
Okay.
that's what I said. That shifting my strategy from tracking too many stocks to just 10, 15 names. It really helps a lot because you are aware that this particular industry, what is going on, and you can actually have time to go through all the con calls and annual reports. So that really
Great.
helps a lot.
Great. So, Swapnil, in your mind, do you think there are some advantages as well as some disadvantages of not being full time into markets? Like, if one thing that I can see is that if you're not full time into the market, there's obviously one clear advantage of having a lot of peace of mind, because then you're not overly worried about markets or trying to relatively beat the market. Like, market is not the entire life of yours. So, like, in your experience, like, since you have been investing for some time, there would always be some time where you have thought, like, a lot of people after some while they think that, let me do it full time, right? So has that thought also creeped in for you? And if and like, why haven't you taken that step?
See, frankly speaking, I'm not full time into investment because I first want to have some, security. कि यार इतना पैसा तो मैं कमाऊंगा from the academy, right? So
Right,
for me, my classes are like cash cow, right? So I
right,
try to make money from that, from my, that is my prime source of income. Correct.
right,
So that is one thing. And another thing is that I think I'm still not there yet in full time investing because वो mindset चाहिए full time investment के लिए, right?
right,
So and another thing that I feel that I'm missing somewhere is that the people who actually they identify the industries very early because they are into full time investment. I guess that is one advantage that full time investors do have because there are many industries जो मैंने बहुत late track किया है and then I regret that. But there is this constant endeavor that I want to study each and every industry, even if I haven't studied those industries in past, because
right,
you never know कि कब chance मिले उसको purchase करने का, जब
right,
stock सच में सस्ता हो जाए और जब market उसको ignore कर रहा है. So that is something I
right,
really want to be there.
right.
But again, not being a full-time investor, you have some disadvantages. Like I just said, कि हर एक
Yeah,
industry आप track नहीं कर पाते. And then
right.
at that point, the network really helps you a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. So, Swapnil, you invest in a lot of smaller companies, like I have seen. So, is there a specific reason why preference for such kind of smaller companies?
Yes, no, actually, ऐसा कुछ मेरे दिमाग में नहीं है कि मैं लार्ज कैप में इन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं करूंगा.
Yeah,
But there
but
has to be.
broadly, I think for a larger part, you invest in smaller companies, right?
That's true. That's true. Because see, I try to invest in those companies जहाँ पे there is some data mismatch in the sense that not all the investors are knowing all this stuff about the company.
Right,
Correct. So there is this there's this gap of about the knowledge about the company, and I try to understand. I mean I have to have some edge on the information which I have and other investors are not having. So I try
right,
to do that, and if I have that thing, that really helps you to be ahead in the game.
right. So, Swapnil, how do you screen for these companies? I mean, the lower you go on the market cap side, the more cluttered the space is, right? So there are a lot of good and bad companies. So how do you screen for this name? Is there anything specific on the broader side that you look for, which makes you then look deep into that company?
See, I frankly am not a very good person to screen the stocks per se. So just as I said, network really helps you a lot. So apart from the network, network बन भी गया तो आपका बहुत सारे लोग होंगे जो आपको बहुत सारे ideas देते रहेंगे.
Yeah,
But for me, the most important thing is to understand the business. The business must be very simple.
right.
And then I try to see promoters क्या कर रहे हैं. So
Okay.
I try to get in touch with them. Earlier I used to think कि छोटे investors जो होते हैं वो promoters को ज़्यादा बात नहीं कर सकते. But then last year I tried meeting many companies and contacting them via LinkedIn. And you will be surprised that there are many management who are actually very investor friendly and they are very open to talk. So that really gives you an advantage because you're knowing कि small caps में micro caps में promoter क्या कर रहा है. And I really believe
Right.
that small caps में अगर promoter क्या कर रहा है वो अगर आपको नहीं पता है तो then that is a perfect recipe to disaster.
Okay. So basically what you're saying is that an advantage that in smaller companies, what obviously what you're saying that there's a lot of information gap, that is true, but someone who's able to connect with the management and wherein you're saying that what a lot of people think that people are not ready to talk, that's an opposite of what you're saying that, a lot of people are really interested in talking and that gives you an edge in investing.
True.
Okay. So Swapnil, can you talk a bit about how the research process goes for you? Like, what are the areas that you try to cover? Talking to promoters is an important aspect that you've talked about. What are the other areas you try to cover? And is there a specific sequence? पहले ये देख लेते हैं, फिर बाद में, like a priority, first priority is obviously that you've said that you need to know what the promoter is doing, right? What are the second or third thing that you think you need to do?
See, the business should really have good tailwinds. So that is really important. So I'm not like कि मेरा पैसा 5-6 साल में बनेगा. I just want to understand next 1-2 years में कंपनी को tailwinds है क्या अच्छे. So अगर tailwinds अच्छे हैं ना तो I believe every player in the industry will make money for you. But then in that case, if you're talking to the promoters and if you're known that they are doing actually really good work, so that gives you a really good edge. ठीक है, तो पहले तो मैं देखता हूँ कि स्क्रीनर से बेसिक इंफॉर्मेशन which everyone should do कि बिजनेस मॉडल कैसा है एंड देन आई ट्राई टू फिगर आउट वैल्यू चेन में कहाँ फिट होती है कंपनी एंड देन आई ट्राई टू सी कॉम्पिटिटर्स क्या कर रहे हैं. अगर आप कॉम्पिटिटर्स को भी स्टडी करोगे ना एंड देन इफ एवरीवन इज टॉकिंग अबाउट टेलविंड्स इन द इंडस्ट्री देन दैट इज समथिंग दैट इज गिविंग यू मोर कॉन्फिडेंस कि हाँ मतलब ये इंडस्ट्री में पैसा तो बनेगा. And then if you figure out the smallest company which are actually having good promoters, because of low base, there is more probability कि growth आएगा वहां पे. Right? Because बड़े companies में एक ऐसा हो सकता है कि sometimes earnings disappoint करें और because उनका valuation already बहुत हो चुका है तो उधर पैसा बनना थोड़ा सा मुश्किल हो सकता है. But smaller companies, because their base is low and because you're knowing exactly what promoter is having in his mind, so that actually helps a lot.
Another aspect that I wanted to ask Swapnil is that how do you distinguish between good and bad apples? The reason why I'm asking this is on the smaller company side, a lot of times you don't have a past track record to look at, right? A lot of times you might be investing in a story evolving, right? But what has happened nowadays is every promoter has become smart and they are good at storytelling nowadays, right? So from that perspective, it has become slightly difficult to distinguish. And since you talk to a lot of promoters, for you, it would be very important to distinguish, कौन सही बोल रहा है, कौन ज़्यादा story बना रहा है, right? So how do you do that?
See, actually, that is really difficult, because there are many people who are actually very aggressive and then they also deliver, as I said. So you have to also keep a track on, whether they are walking the talk and numbers में वो reflect हो रहा है क्या जैसा उन्होंने बताया. So अगर कोई promoter बोलता है कि मतलब मैं बहुत अच्छा करूंगा and वो sale में number में reflect नहीं होता है, I'm out of that stock. So you also have to keep a track on the execution. So अगर सिर्फ बातें बड़ी-बड़ी कर रहे हैं and execution में problem है तो there is no point, staying in that stock because you never know कि कितना झूठ बोल रहा है. And the other thing is, there are many, you can actually talk to the competitors or the suppliers to understand promoter कैसा है, correct? तो बहुत बार ये help होता है आपको कि प्रमोटर खुद की तो तारीफ करेगा, बट अगर आपको कहीं क्रॉस कंफर्मेशन कोई दूसरे सोर्स से मिल रहा है that this guy is actually very reliable, like talking to the employees, because LinkedIn is a very good place to get in connect. You can connect to a lot of people, a lot of employees, even suppliers. You can ask them questions about the promoters, and if you're getting a positive feedback, then I guess that's a good starting point to know better about the promoter.
An opposite question of this was also that nowadays a lot of smaller companies are also doing presentation phone calls. So nowadays it is very likely that even a very small company might at least have a presentation or do once a year type of phone call. So do you think that has helped in doing research about these companies? And secondly, how it has impacted value discovery? For someone like you who was ready to put in the hard work and reach out to people, reach out to management to do the hard work, versus now, if there is a presentation phone call, so a lot of more people are able to do that more easily. Do you think that has impacted the value discovery in the area that you invest?
Yes. Actually, I try to invest in the companies where there is less information available and which are not doing con calls, because I want them to do con calls, of course, but
After you buy.
yeah, of course, because if you are actually able to understand that the company में अच्छा story बन रहा है ना, तो then I try to actually suggest promoters that you should do con calls, because con calls are very good way that the market will take a notice of what you're doing, right? Because there are many companies in the market which are not doing con calls, but I know that they're doing a lot of good stuff in the background. So con calls से एक चीज तो होगी कि ज्यादा लोग उसके बारे में डिस्कशन करेंगे और फिर वो स्टोरी जो है वो सबको पता चलेगी, and then that really helps the company to get re-rated. But then you have to be very careful. अगर बुल मार्केट में कोई भी रैंडम कंपनी कॉन कॉल कर रही है, you must also see कि पास में कॉन कॉल्स करके उन्होंने अचानक से कॉन कॉल्स बंद किए क्या, and then they are actually again starting to do con calls. Then you should ask yourself कि यार ये कहीं बुल मार्केट का एडवांटेज उठाने के लिए फिर से कॉन कॉल्स तो नहीं कर रहे. So that is again one important. So you have to see the companies which are actually very consistent in doing con calls.
Right. No, that's a very interesting aspect. I mean, I have seen a lot of companies that used to do con call in 2017 cycle. They stopped between 2-3 years, and now a lot of them have again started doing it. That's a good indicator. Right? One needs to question that actually. पहले बंद किया था, वापस स्टार्ट किया है, तो either something has changed, or अगर कुछ change नहीं हुआ है तो then bull market game है. Right. So Swapnil, in a lot of these smaller companies, there are always a lot of ifs and buts, like accounting inconsistency, some related party transactions, some issues with promoters and all that stuff. But in the larger scheme of things, more than ever, we have seen that eventually the relevance of these things in the longer run is not that much if the business ends up delivering, right? Something like say Web of Global, where in the early cycle, because the promoter who got arrested in the past, nobody was interested. But I mean, in this cycle, most of the well-known funds have gone and bought the company. So what, according to you, are things that are okay, can be accommodated, and what are the things that are a big no-no? Matlab, this kind of inconsistency or issues are there, wo to nahi chahiye. Because I'll tell you a good example that earlier when I used to find some companies, like I've missed a lot of good companies purely because there was some accounting inconsistency. In one of the podcasts, Mr. Ayush Mittal once said that, in small companies, you never have a good accounting. There'll always be an issue. But what one needs to see is that how the accounting has moved over time, because he said that I can tell with a lot of experience that over time in small companies, accounting increasingly becomes better. So you should never ignore a small company, just because there is some accounting inconsistency. So unless there is a clear cut fraud, you don't have to avoid it. So in your understanding, based on what you have done over the years research, what according to you is like, कि ये ठीक है, मतलब this is accommodate, मतलब चलेगा, and what is not, like say clear red flag, ये तो नहीं करना चाहिए.
So I guess there were some related party transactions in tips industries as well. If I'm not wrong, some investor from Twitter, he pointed out saying that यार इसमें issues है थोड़े. So मैंने saw कि promoter जो है वो खुद के personal expenses जो है वो company से करा रहा है, but the quantum of that was not that huge. So I kind of ignored them, right? Because I was knowing कि promoter is knowing a lot of what he's doing in his business. So अगर बहुत immaterial चीज है ना तो I kind of ignore it. But if there is some serious accounting issue कि यार मतलब पूरा balance sheet ही manipulated है, right? So agar so for instance I got this feedback from an industry जहाँ पे मेरे को 2-3 लोगों ने बोला यार इसके books fudged है, and I was actually invested in that company, right? So I was the first one to move out of that company. उसके बाद भी stock बहुत अच्छा गया, but then again why take that risk when I'm a concentrated investor? That really hurts कि जब आपकी कोई company अच्छा perform नहीं कर रही है, right? So जब बहुत सीरियस इश्यूज आते हैं जैसे कि बुक्स ही फर्स्ट है तो then in that case there is very less that you can do, so you have to move your money out of that stock. But if it is very material like just as said in tips industries and बहुत ही minute सा अगर कुछ related party transactions है तो in that case I just ignore them. There was another company called as PNG's Gargi. So in that case also there were related party transactions. For instance, I'll just share you about the brief business model of this company. So PNG is a very well-known brand, right? So PNG का महाराष्ट्र में बहुत अच्छा नाम है and it is 190 years old actually brand into jewelry. So they just started this new segment called as PNG's Gargi. So this is the new venture where they are actually not selling real gold like the parent used to do since 190 years. This is into artificial jewelry, right? Okay. So जितने भी PNGs के ओरिजिनल 30 ब्रांड स्टोर्स है उसमें इनका छोटा सा एक शॉपिंग शॉप था, राइट? सो देयर वर 30 एक्चुअली PNGs stores in Maharashtra and major in Maharashtra, 29 in Maharashtra and 2 in other states. So ये 30 stores में जो है PNGs जो है वो गार्गी नाम का एक अलग कंपनी इन्होंने अभी बनाया और उसमें इनके शॉप इन शॉप स्टोर्स इन्होंने मतलब अरेंजमेंट किया था और when I saw कि एम्प्लॉइज गार्गी के कितने हैं, so there were approximately just 23 employees. So logically हर स्टोर में एक एम्प्लॉई अगर होगा तो मिनिमम 30 तो एम्प्लॉइज चाहिए, right? But then the arrangement was such that the parent was actually helping this newly listed company Gargi by giving them the employees and other help, right? So these kind of related party transactions इतना issue नहीं आना चाहिए. And another thing I saw जब भी PNGs अपना advertisement करती थी, for example they took Ajay Devgn as a brand ambassador, right? तो उनके ad के end में गार्गी भी आता था. So बेसिकली हो ये रहा है कि पेरेंट एक्सपेंस कर रहे हैं बट गार्गी की बैलेंस शीट में कहीं रिफ्लेक्ट नहीं हो रहा है एंड दैट वाज द रीजन अगेन व्हाई they were able to clock such high EBITDA margins. So these are little things जो मतलब कंपनी स्टडी करने पे जब आप पूरा मतलब अच्छे से रिसर्च करते हो तो आपको समझ में आता है बट देन आई थॉट यार ये इतना भी कुछ रिस्की नहीं है एंड देन I got a chance to speak to the promoters and they were like कि Gargi is actually the child of the main company and promoters are actually common, right? So I thought yeah, this is a smart strategy. So if this Gargi is growing on the support of the parent company, then that is not such a bad idea per se.
That's an interesting insight. Like a lot of people think that promoters might be siphoning off money through related party, but in this case, actually, the related party is helping the smaller company, right? So it's opposite of it, right? Makes sense. Makes sense. Another point that I wanted to ask here is like, since you're a chartered accountant, like it has happened with me also, like I'm a chartered accountant as well. So you sort of feel like, at least initially it happened with me that I thought accounting is somewhere when I can add an edge. And so accounting was something that I should look more closely. And more than anything, more than adding to my research, it sort of constrained me in, trying to invest into companies because you can look at a lot of negatives so more clearly. Has it happened to you as well? Has the reliance on, say, accounting and numbers was much higher at some point of time and over the years of experience that has reduced for you?
Yes, same here, Ankush. So एक्चुअली क्या होता है कि आप जब ऑन द फेस ऑफ इट बैलेंस शीट P&L देखते हो, देन यू सी क्या पी मल्टीपल चल रहा है, राइट? समटाइम्स यू मिस आउट द ब्रॉडर स्कीम ऑफ थिंग्स, जहाँ पे बिजनेस माइट डू एक्चुअली वेल, एंड देन पी मल्टीपल जो हम लोग देखते हैं ऑन द फेस ऑफ इट, that really matters. Hardly matters, because company is actually performing well. For example, look at Trent, how it is performing on the face of it. जब आप देखोगे, मैंने तो उसको जब भी देखा, उसका valuation मेरे को बहुत ज्यादा लगा, but then it kept surprising everyone. I got to understand this thing कि यार P multiple कभी-कभी ignore करना चाहिए जब business सच में बहुत अच्छा perform कर रहा है, because it will always remain expensive given the quality of management and the execution that the company is doing. So the same thing I applied when I invested in this company PNG's Gari. So it was always expensive. It was always about 30-40 multiple. Even now it is very expensive, right? But when I understood, यार इसमें product mix change हो रहा है, right? So earlier they were making this artificial jewelry जहाँ पे price range 500 से 2000 रुपए का होता था. Then they started this 14 carat jewelry जो carat lane करता है, and they were very optimistic. यार ये 14 carat jewelry जो है ये सीधा 500-2000 का price range increase कर देगा 50,000. So on the face of it, P तो बहुत inflated लग रहा है, but अगर आप forward calculation करोगे, then you will understand यार नहीं, ये P जो है, ये जितना दिख रहा है अभी, वो it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day what matters is आप कितने तेज से grow कर रहे हो. So these are the things जो on the face of it, being a chartered accountant, जब मैं देख रहा हूँ P बहुत ज्यादा है, ये सब चीजें हमें बहुत जल्दी समझ में आती है, but then they really they hardly matters, because they the business कैसे grow हो रहा है वो आपको चेक करना चाहिए. So PEG ratio is more important than just artificially looking at the P ratio.
So, Swapnil, can you talk a bit about allocation, like at a portfolio level, how many stocks do you have, and at an individual stock level, how do you go about allocating money?
So I will not be suggesting anyone to do this strategy, but I'm actually when I believe in this story, I really don't care about allocation. मतलब standard allocation के rules, मतलब किसी को भी पूछे, कोई समझदार इन्वेस्टर से, वो बोलेगा यार 5% से ज्यादा मत allocate करना, रिस्क अपना मैनेज करना. बट आई हैव बीन लाइक दिस क्रेजी allocator. अगर मेरे को स्टोरी समझ में आ गया तो आई कैन गो एंड allocate like 40-50% in a stock. So the same thing happened with changes when I studied this company. So there is this friend of mine, Prathamesh Hirve. He really helped me in the initial stages with this company. And जब मैंने, because 30 stores थे इनके, frankly, so I allocated 50%. So I know that this is such a crazy allocation, but then I was knowing, about the promoters really well, and they had this legacy of 190 years. In this 190 years, there was not a single store of PNGs that got shut down. So they were having this legacy, and the quality of promoters market was not aware about this. And I believe the IPO of this company was the biggest joke, because they I guess it was at around 7p, just 7p. When it got listed, it got listed at approximately 30 rupees, and it kept delivering and kept surprising everyone. So I was actually very early in this company, and that really helped me a lot, because I was very confident that promoters are doing a lot of good work, and there is this product mix change which is happening. So my friend used to call store managers and do this scuttlebutt कि exactly क्या चल रहा है, demand कैसा आ रहा है, because सिर्फ 30 stores ही थे. So he's this crazy guy who used to call each and every store manager on Sundays to just check 14 carat jewelry आया क्या. And this is something that really helps you, and motivates you to work hard while you're doing research. So when I mean to say, if I'm very confident about the promoters, I really don't care about the allocation. And in that sense, I have 10-12 stocks in my portfolio approximately.
Right. But even in this 10-12 stocks, 3-4 stocks would be like 70-80%, yes, right?
3-4 stocks, I guess they're approximately at maybe 60%.
Okay. So another point over here would be that since you run an academy, so you have a regular source of income that you can look to invest. So how do you go about it? Is it that you add money to your portfolio at a regular intervals? In that case, do you keep topping up on your existing investments, Or is it like the capital addition is an outcome of you finding a new opportunity and then on the lump sum you just put some more money on it?
No, I keep adding as and when I get money. So
Okay.
I'm actually very lucky because I stay here in my hometown with my parents, and
Okay.
there is very less that I need to expend. So I'm very lucky that
Right.
way because whatever money I'm earning, I can I have minimal expense to spend, and the remaining balance amount I try to invest whenever I get money.
So you keep adding on existing investment on regular basis?
Yes, I do that.
Okay.
I do that.
Okay. Okay. So Swapnil, let's talk about selling. I mean, the first part would be that in the kind of investment that you're making, power law would be more relevant, right? If something like, PNBS Gari or like to 50%, if it works out, 5, 6x. So, the concentration could be huge for your scheme of things. So how do you go about profit booking?
See, for profit booking, I actually ask myself a simple question. ये स्टॉक यहाँ से अभी डबल होने में और कितना टाइम लगेगा? 2 साल, 3
Okay.
साल, 6 महीने? I always ask this question. यार ये इतना अभी वैल्यूएशन हो गया इसका अभी. There are two things that can actually help a stock move ahead. One is
Okay.
the P re-rating, and the second is the earnings kick in, right? So
Okay.
I ask myself always this question. यार ये स्टॉक अभी इतना मूव हो चुका है, अब यहाँ से अभी ये डबल कितने टाइम में करेगा? अब वो डबल कितने टाइम में करेगा, दैट इज एनीबॉडीज गेस, बट आई ट्राई टू जस्ट आस्क माई सेल्फ दिस क्वेश्चन. अर्निंग्स कैसे आएंगे इसके नेक्स्ट 1 ईयर, कैसे लग रहा है? और अर्निंग्स आएंगे तो फिर अभी फॉर एग्जांपल इन दिस केस ऑफ गार्गी, आई रिसेंटली सोल्ड आउट बिकॉज आई थॉट पी रेटिंग बहुत हो चुका है और यहाँ से पी शायद रीरेट नहीं होगा, but
Okay.
earnings definitely उसके आएंगे. So I moved out of the stock and I invested my money somewhere else because it's a very difficult decision because जो आपका portfolio में इतना highest
Yeah.
allocation है, जब
Yeah,
उससे
absolutely.
because you try you actually have this connection with the stock and the
Yeah,
management,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's a very difficult thing. But I really want to do this thing that I want to grow at the portfolio level, and I don't want
Yeah.
to marry any stock. It's a very difficult
Right.
decision, but this decision was a mix of two things because the stock was already kind of getting high valuations, and next 1 year it will do good, but I think it will be just a consistent compounder kind of story. And I recently found out some other stock जहां पे मेरे को लगा कि
Right.
यार इसमें सेम काइंड ऑफ स्टोरी शायद इमर्ज हो सकता है. So I moved up from Gargi to some other stock.
So basically, you're saying is you try to look at next 1 year, and if 1 year is say more or less, you're expecting that double hona chahiye broadly.
No, not like that. I'm just saying कि ये डबल कितने टाइम में होगा? It might be 2 years, 3 years, but एक कैलकुलेशन में करता हूँ अर्निंग्स के हिसाब से. And
Okay.
see, as an investor, you don't know when the stock will double, right? All you can make a guess is tailwinds देख के, मैनेजमेंट का गाइडेंस देख के वो एग्जीक्यूट कर रहेगा और वो अर्निंग्स कितने टाइम में डबल करेगा. अब अर्निंग्स डबल करेगा
Right.
डजंट रियली मीन स्टॉक में डबल होगा, बिकॉज अगर स्टॉक ऑलरेडी
Yeah.
रीरेट हो चुका है, then you have a very little scope of the stock will double from that level, right?
Right.
So I try to figure out and understand कहीं earnings double होगा क्या एक साल में, and then market ने उसको कम multiple दिया है क्या? If that happens, the combination of these two things will really help you to compound your money faster.
Right. One question what I wanted to ask over your Swapnil is that since, like, say, for example, PNS Gargi, you had 50% allocation, right? So in this kind of concentration, even 5-10% move every day has a substantial impact on your portfolio, right? So on a constant basis, how do you deal with that challenge? Because see, on paper, a lot of people think that, allocating 40-50% and getting 4-5x multi-bagger is easy, but the journey to hold this is extremely difficult. Matlab, it's not that easy. Every day you keep questioning yourself, कि भाई ये चलेगा नहीं चलेगा, कितना चलेगा, right? So how do you deal with that?
So you have to have confidence on the promoters. That is the biggest advantage. मतलब मैं अगर इतना allocation करके भी रात को अच्छे से सो रहा हूँ, it means
Right.
that I have faith on the promoters and the management that they are actually going to do really well, right? And for instance, in case of Gargi, जब भी store expansion होता था, I get to know that कि यार store expansion हो रहा है, company बहुत तेजी से grow कर रही है. So these are the things business wise अगर company अच्छा करे ना, then in that case it hardly matters allocation कितना हुआ है. You will get that sound sleep कि यार मेरा इतना allocation है, but ठीक, it doesn't really matter because business wise तो बहुत solid execution चल रहा है. So if you have that kind of faith and conviction, then only you can go and allocate, and then only you can hold on to the stock even if it is you know uh, 3-4x from your buying level.
Right. Yeah, conviction helps. That makes sense. So, Swapnil, has it happened in the past in say any stock of yours wherein you had some high concentration? Everything is happening well, but for some reason, typically happens in the market. For some reason, stock corrects. That stock corrected 20-30% for no reason. And how did you deal? Was it challenging? Like, did you re-question your thesis? Like, how did you deal with that? That you went and talked to the management again, redid your valuation,
Right. So it happened recently that I was invested in this stock, and this was having like second, third allocation in my portfolio. So
Okay.
it was not doing anywhere, right? Frankly speaking, it was below my buying price, and for a long period of time, right?
Hmm.
So yes, again, you have to talk to the promoters constantly, right? And ask business में क्या चल रहा है, right?
Right.
So if business is going good, then you have to have the conviction कि यार ठीक है, आज मार्केट इसको इग्नोर कर रहा है, बट जब मार्केट इसका नोटिस लेगा तो ये बहुत जल्दी रीरेट भी हो जाएगा. सो दिस
Right.
हैपेंस वेरी वेरी क्विकली. यू नेवर नो, जो जो स्टॉक आपके पोर्टफोलियो में चला नहीं, वो शायद हो सकता है कि 15-20 दिन में इतना चल जाए कि आपका पूरा पैसा बन जाएगा. बट फॉर
Right.
दैट यू हैव फेथ इन द मैनेजमेंट एंड सी बिजनेस वाइज सब फंडामेंटली सही चल रहा है. So it might also happen कि अगर स्टॉक का बहुत हैमरिंग हो रहा है, तो
Yeah.
some serious concerns might be there because
Yeah.
market is actually much more knowledgeable than you as an individual investor, correct? So this
Yeah.
happened recently. The stock called as focus lighting. So I'm not highly invested in this stock, but I just saw that this stock, it market hammered it like anything, correct? So
Okay.
then there were some working capital issues. एंड मतलब ये सारे इश्यूज पहले से ही थे, मतलब ऐसे नहीं कि अभी अचानक से वर्किंग कैपिटल इश्यूज आए, राइट? बट
Right.
मैं वही बोल रहा हूँ कि अगर स्टॉक कहीं बहुत पिट जाता है, देन यू स्टार्ट एक्चुअली आस्किंग कि यार थीसिस सही चल रहा है क्या, और कुछ सीरियस कंसर्न्स है क्या. सो इट माइट हैपन कि विदाउट एनी रीजन स्टॉक पिट गया,
Yeah.
या फिर ये भी हो सकता है कि कोई सॉलिड रीजन है और मार्केट को कुछ ज्यादा पता है, एंड दैट्स व्हाई सम इन्फॉर्म्ड इन्वेस्टर्स एक्चुअली सेलिंग द स्टॉक. सो यू हैव टू ऑलवेज कीप आस्किंग कि अगर बहुत पिटाई हो रही है स्टॉक की, तो कहीं मेरा थीसिस गलत तो नहीं है, या फिर ये भी हो सकता है कि मेरा थीसिस सही है, बट मार्केट अननेसेसरली स्टॉक को हैमर करा, एंड देन दैट बिकम्स a really good opportunity to add in because you know that business wise everything is going good, but unnecessarily stock is getting hammered. So it could be
Right.
anything. You have to
Right.
connect to the management or get some insights business wise क्या चल रहा है.
Right. So you typically average down in such situations wherein stock has corrected for some
Yeah,
reason, but you still believe in it.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, definitely.
The second aspect that I wanted to ask about selling was that I have seen that a lot of people who enter early in the early stages of business, like the way I look at it is there are two stages. The first phase is, which is, smart retail investors are in the stock. And the second phase of a stock becomes when institutions start getting in. It's not that when institutions start getting in, the story is over. Stocks still do a lot well from that level. Maybe you don't get that much rating, but the business growth is still there, right? So I've seen that a lot of people who get early, right, they also end up selling early. One reason could be because since they were early into the business, they're able to judge the FOMO or hype around the business much easier. So when the second stage start, which is when the institutions start getting in, they become overly cautious about the hype that starts coming in the market, right? Like to like I'm not sure should I say this or not. So example like tips, like just a disclosure, I'm personally invested and it's an active recommended research. So tips now to an extent is getting like institutional interest, right? So you know but I can, since I have been invested in it at a time when people used to call this company chore because earlier they had never done anything. And when I bought that time, there was also this court case around, one of the promoters might be involved in murder of one of the peers. That things were also there. So I have seen the journey of how this company was sort of ignored, wherein most people wanted to buy Saregama and not tips, and now it's like tips. No, nobody's interested in Saregama. So I am able to see that froth and hype much more clearly versus some other people because I've seen that journey, right? So that also makes someone who's early sell, right? Another is that a lot of these people who are early are also more value conscious. So by the time that second leg starts, they are not very interested. They're okay selling to the institutions and looking for something else, right? So wanted to know about this. What is your take? Like, have you also experienced that, eventually you do end up selling a little early and you're not able to ride that, say, the second leg, which is when the institutions start getting in? Because there's this thing, right? A lot of people think that you have to buy cheap and sell at reasonable valuation, but the biggest money is made when you buy cheap and sell at the frothy valuation, right? That you capture both the cycles. So what is your take on that?
See, I feel institutions अगर enter कर रहे कोई stock को, so that could be anybody's guess कि stock आगे और कैसे करेगा. So अगर institutions enter कर रहे and the stock is already re-rated, then in that case you need to ask again. Just जैसे मैं खुद को question पूछ रहा हूँ कि यार ये stock का P multiple अगर अच्छा re-rate हो चुका है, और अगर earnings में कहीं disappointment आ गया, right? In that case stock की पिटाई होगी, फिर stock लंबा consolidation में जाएगा, right? So अगर FIs enter कर रहे हैं, so most probably ऐसा हुआ होगा उसमें कि P multiple अच्छा खासा मिल गया stock को, और फिर यहाँ से आगे फिर earnings फिर एक ही चीज पे आप dependent हो, correct? So that could be again anybody's guess. Just like I said, look at trend, है ना? Trend ने तो सबको surprise किया है, उसमें FI holding भी बहुत अच्छा खासा है, but it is delivery. So again, I just don't rely on this just single data कि FI enter कर रहे हैं तो मेरे को exit करना है. FI enter कर रहे हैं, but अगर valuation अभी भी reasonable है, उसका re-rating हुआ नहीं है और earnings trigger अच्छे हैं, tailwinds अच्छे हैं, तो I'm very happy to hold that stock.
Right. No, but has it been in the past wherein you felt that you have exit? So what happens is, say you're buying something at 20 times TTM, right? By the time the second leg has started, instead of started getting, it's already 40, 50 times, right? But what happens is you thought that this company 40, 50 times is huge, because when you're buying at 20, even 40, 50 multiples looks rich at some point. But you never know that with institutional interest coming in, the stock might also get 60, 70 times, right? Who knows? Because the story has built up the company. You either ways know that company is delivering. Earlier, it was not getting respect. Now it is getting respect. So it might also get much better respect. So it might go to 60, 70 times also, right? So in that situation, has it happened before wherein, you thought, yeah, your multiple rich hai, but eventually you saw that multiple still expanding much more higher?
Yeah, I saw this with a couple of companies. For example, I was invested in this company called as Crown Lifters. So it is into crane renting.
Yeah.
So I was very early in the stock, but then there were many investors who actually entered by preferential, and I was also there. Even post preferential, it had a very good run up. But then recently, when I thought, यार इसमें भी बहुत ज़्यादा P इसको मिल रहा है, correct? So I slowly started selling it when it was at around 40, 42 P, right? But then it kept surprising everyone, and it rallied even after that. So this happened with me that यार मेरे को लग रहा है कि इसको और क्या P मिलेगा, इतना तो already read हो चुका है, correct? But then it kept surprising everyone. So you have to be God to sell at the highest point. You don't even know कि आगे और क्या होगा stock. So that is anybody's guess again. But I don't mind doing that because ठीक है, मतलब मेरा पैसा बन चुका है उसके अंदर, तो I really don't regret कि यार मेरे buying के बाद, मेरे selling के बाद में और आगे stock move हो गया.
Yeah, that is true that if you keep regretting, then वो तो हर रोज regret करना पड़ेगा, market तो वैसे ही है. But that is what I wanted to ask, because when you buy early now, that becomes a point where by the time it becomes a double of your multiple, you become little jittery, right? Versus some other guy who's coming in, they might not become that jittery because they have not seen, how this journey has been. Got it. Another thing, Swapnil, so you invest in SMEs as well, right? What, according to you, would be some of the pros and cons of investing in SME? Because I personally think is like SMEs are like small caps on steroids. Everything that is good and bad about small cap caps is 10x in SMEs, right? So anything that specific in your mind that, with your experience has been on investing in SMEs, that this is, you know, like in small caps, a lot of people have realized, how much you need to give weightage to accounting and promoter related issues and all that stuff. So in SME area, is there anything specific that, people should understand when investing in those companies?
I believe that people who are actually just getting started in their investing journey, they should be actually very careful while investing in SMEs because of the lot size. Frankly speaking, because
Right.
there are many retail investors who try to buy SME stocks, but then जब stock गिर जाता है, then they don't have that kind of money to average it out because lot
Right.
इतना बड़ा lot size है. अगर कोई इन्वेस्टर छोटा इन्वेस्टर जस्ट स्टार्ट कर रहा है, उसका पोर्टफोलियो साइज ही बहुत कम है और फिर वो 2 लाख का एक लॉट ले लेता है एंड देन जब स्टॉक नीचे आ जाता है तो एक्चुअली स्टॉक अगर नीचे आ गया तो इट कुड बी अ वेरी गुड पॉइंट टू अगेन ऐड बट देन बिकॉज ऑफ दिस लॉट साइज इशू तो ये मैक्सिमम छोटे इन्वेस्टर्स को थोड़ा सा है ना देखना चाहिए ये एक एंगल राइट एंड द अदर पार्ट इज दैट आई डोंट थिंक एसएमई और माइक्रो एंड स्मॉल कैप पोर्ट्स में ज्यादा कुछ डिफरेंस है द प्रोसेस स्टिल रिमेन्स द सेम यू हैव टू बेट ऑन द प्रमोटर एंड सी बाकी आपका जो बिजनेस को आप जैसे स्टडी करते हो वो सब कुछ तो सेम ही रहेगा दी ओनली पार्ट जहां पे थोड़े बहुत सेबी गाइडलाइंस भी एसएमईज के लिए अलग एप्लीकेबल होते हैं एंड माइक्रो कैप्स के लिए अलग है फॉर एग्जांपल दिस ईएसएम स्टेज में जब स्टॉक जाता है वो माइक्रो कैप्स के लिए और स्मॉल कैप्स के लिए एप्लीकेबल आई गेस रिसेंटली सेबी ने कुछ नोटिफाई भी किया था 1000 करोड़ से कम कंपनीज को फ्रेमवर्क लगाएंगे बट आई गेस एसएमईज को ऐसा कुछ नहीं है सो दैट इज एन एडवांटेज बिकॉज अदरवाइज स्टॉक जो है वो एक रेंज में अटक जाता है सर्किट फिल्टर भी चेंज हो जाता है एसएमईज को एप्लीकेबल नहीं दैट इज एन एडवांटेज बट अगेन जस्ट एज आई सेड कि एसएमईज में लॉट सिस्टम की वजह से एवरेज आउट करना बहुत मुश्किल होता है एंड देन देयर इज अनदर थिंग एसएमई में ना वॉल्यूम भी आपको देखना चाहिए बिकॉज इन द लास्ट साइकिल आई रिमेम्बर कि बहुत सारे स्टॉक्स जो ना लोग लेके अटक गए थे और जब वो सेल करने का ट्राई करते हैं एंड दे वर स्टक इन दो स्टॉक्स सो यू हैव टू बी वेरी केयरफुल so if you're investing in SMEs you have to ask yourself very important question business wise execution wise management का quality कैसा है because that is the only thing that matters in SMEs unless and until you're sure कि management capable है बहुत अच्छा है honest है integrity है management you should never invest in SMEs.
So, Swapnil, one thing I've seen that even though regulatory wise SMEs need to report only half yearly results, there's some like even PNGS Gargi also reports quarterly results as well, right? So, is there a good indicator that if someone is reporting quarterly, then qualitatively is it a good sign in your experience, or a lot of normal companies also do that SME?
No, it's a very good sign कि company इतनी transparent है और 6 monthly yes that is also a very good point to highlight it because SMEs में कैसे 6 months के बाद अगर normally आपको result समझ रहा है so there is very little you know about the company right so transparency matters a lot अगर कोई SME आपको 3 months के बाद result बता रही है it means they are not actually hiding anything correct बहुत सारी चीजें 6 months में reflect नहीं होती कि आपका performance quarterly basis पे कैसा है correct तो अगर कोई SME ये कर रही है I feel that is a very very good corporate governance standard company ने बहुत अच्छा सेट किया है करेक्ट सो जो भी ऐसा कर रही है सो आई फील वो एटलीस्ट ट्राई तो कर रही है कि हम लोग हर 3 महीने में आपको ट्रांसपेरेंटली हर एक चीज शेयर करेंगे सो आई फील पर्सनली फील मेनी एसएमईज शुड डू दिस इवन देन देयर इज नो स्टैंडर्ड रिक्वायरमेंट एज पर द लॉ जितने एसएमईज करेंगे उतना और अच्छा बिकॉज आपको ज्यादा क्लैरिटी मिलेगा अदरवाइज आप 6 मंथ्स के बाद अगर पिक्चर देखोगे तो 6 मंथ्स में आपको समझेगा भी नहीं कि क्या चल रहा है स्टोरी क्या है.
Yeah, because obviously 6 months, at least from a market point of view, it's a good cycle. So if 6 months of market में कुछ हो गया already, and by the time you get that update, so some insiders might be knowing something what has happened, and you get to know that 6 months later, then that's a very big disadvantage, right? The last thing that I wanted to ask Swapnil is, in your investing journey, can you talk about one big winner, one big loser, and the whole journey? Like, how did you figure that stock out? Like, what you liked about it, how you bought it, how, why, and when you sold it, and was there any big learning out of it? It doesn't necessarily have to be the biggest in terms of percentage gain, but wherein the journey was something that was very fruitful and you ended up learning something good out of it.
Right. So I'll start with the loser. So my
Yeah.
biggest loser was Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail. So
Okay.
very interestingly,
Yeah.
ये company हर एक चीज कर रही है, right?
Yeah.
So when I started tracking this company, I was like, यार ये बहुत ही interesting play because this company is actually into menswear and they were having really good brands like Peter England,
Yeah.
every good brand they were having in the kitty, and it was doing a lot of acquisitions as well. So it acquired Reebok, which was it is a very good brand, right? But
Yeah.
somehow it did not execute well. एंड आई वाज थिंकिंग यार ट्रेंड को इतना वैल्यूएशन मिल रहा है, ट्रेंड इतना अच्छा कर रहा है, और ट्रेंड जैसा इसके पास पैंटलूज भी है जो अच्छा
Right.
करेगा. सो दैट वाज काइंड ऑफ होप इन्वेस्टिंग, कि आई वाज होपिंग कि ये कंपनी अच्छा करेगी. करेक्ट. फॉर
Mm.
एग्जांपल मान्यवर इज हैविंग सच अ गुड बिजनेस मॉडल,
Yeah.
गुड मार्जिन्स, राइट? एंड
Yeah.
मान्यवर वाज एक्सिक्यूटिंग रियली वेल. और मान्यवर जैसे ही इन्होंने तस्वा करके एक लॉन्च किया था, राइट? बट
Right.
they really failed badly. They just kept acquiring businesses, but none of them actually clicked. And when I invested, it was struggling with the profits. Now it is into losses, I guess. It is reporting losses since what, 8-9 quarters, I guess. So that was one big learning कि सिर्फ hope पे काम नहीं चलेगा. जब तक
Right.
management numbers को reflect ना करे, तो मार्केट उसको हाई पी कभी नहीं देगा. एंड आई वाज ऑफ द व्यू, यार ये जब कंपनी इतना सब कुछ कर रही है और इसके इंडिविजुअल जो पीयर्स है उनको इतना मल्टीपल मिल रहा है, मान्यवर को
Right.
अच्छा मल्टीपल मिल रहा है, ट्रेंड को अच्छा मल्टीपल मिल रहा है, देन पेज इंडस्ट्रीज को अच्छा मल्टीपल मिल रहा है. सो आई वाज होपिंग
Right.
कि यार इसको जब मार्केट रीरेट करेगा तो इसमें अच्छा पैसा बन सकता है. बट देन आई वाज प्रूव्ड रॉन्ग बाय द मार्केट बिकॉज इट रियली नेवर एग्जीक्यूटेड वेल. सो एग्जीक्यूशन रियली प्लेज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट रोल. वहां मैनेजमेंट का क्वालिटी बहुत सही तरीके से टेस्ट होता है.
Right.
So that was one big loser. And again, I will talk about few losers. I was invested into high P stocks like, Tatva Chintan, chemical
Mm.
industry में दो
Chemical
stocks थे
side.
मेरे पास. Clean science था एक मेरे पास. So इसका जब IPO आया था, I was very impressed with the kind of products they were making because
Yeah.
they were exporting in China and they were having one
China.
of a kind products. मोनोपोली वाली पूरे सारे products
Yeah.
थे. Number one,
Yeah.
number two in entire world, right? So, but already जब valuations इतने high थे, so
Yeah.
that was a very big learning कि यार जब valuations बहुत high होते हैं और जब earnings disappointment आता है, या तो stock
Yeah.
नीचे आएगा या तो stock बहुत लंबे टाइम तक consolidate करेगा और आपका पैसा नहीं बनेगा, and then there will this huge opportunity loss, correct? And
Right.
then again I question myself, यार इतने complicated business क्यों लेने मेरे को जब easy business मैं ले सकता हूँ. So that is when I
Right.
changed my strategy. When there are too many moving points, China में ये हो रहा है, raw material price में इतना fluctuation हो रहा है, as an
Right.
investor you cannot keep a track of all these things, right? So I changed my strategy, and now I'm away from pharma stocks because that is really not my cup of tea because मेरे को नहीं समझ आता है pharma and chemical.
Right.
So
Right.
I tried understanding those businesses, but somehow it didn't work.
Right. Right. No, that is actually one thing that even I have noticed is a lot of people try to think that overcomplication will end up making money, but that is not actually true because see, I mean, last 2-3 years, a lot of PSU railways have done exceptionally well, right? But people think that वहीं पैसा बना है, but ऐसा नहीं है, right? Even if you look at say trend that you have talked a lot about, trend is up like 6-7 times last 1.5 years, right? So there are always some pockets of the market which actually do end up doing well. It's just about how you discover them. So I mean, a lot of people think that playing theme itself is going to make you money. Obviously, that's a good strategy if you're able to get to the theme. But सिर्फ theme में पैसा नहीं बनता है. There will be always be smaller pockets wherein say music streaming. Last 3 साल में one of the biggest wealth creators, right? Theme बोल सकते हो आप, but it's a very small pocket, 2 stocks, right? Anything on the winner side, Swapnil, wherein you learned something very big?
Right, as I said, so PNG's Gargi was something जिसमें मेरा सबसे ज्यादा allocation था. So again, when you're early in this talk and when you know about the story, that can really make a lot of money. क्योंकि उसमें P rating and earnings दोनों का trigger होता है, right? Then there was another stock which I already spoke about, Crown Lifters. So this thing happened that in both these companies, I was having, really good friends who actually connected with the management. So it is not necessary that you go directly and talk to the management. Sometimes your network really helps you a lot. So in both these companies, I spoke to a lot of friends who actually met the management. So in case of Crown Lifters as well. So Crown Lifters का story तो बहुत ही unique था because this company was actually not at all discovered. If you see the stock price 1 year back, even now it is not doing any con calls. So there is very little information in the annual report, very dull, boring annual report. Nothing there. Public domain में कुछ ज़्यादा information है भी नहीं. So this guy was very active on LinkedIn as well. So I tried to connect to them and I met them this year in Gujarat. So there was this event जहाँ पे promoter बोल रहा था कि इतना cranes का demand है that in Mumbai 100 cranes का demand है but I'm not able to supply a single crane because every crane of mine is actually already stuck somewhere with the clients. So जब इतना अच्छा capacity utilization है and then this guy is actually having a very small fleet size of around 22 cranes whereas the market leader Sanvi Movers it was having approximately about 400 cranes, right? So when the base is low and industry tailwinds are strong plus promoter is actually very aggressive and optimistic about this tailwind. So at that time जब market को पता ही नहीं stock के बारे में, so I was very convinced about the story and then few of my friends actually met the management and they were like यार promoter तो बहुत aggressive बंदा है. And then when I met him personally, I got to understand सच में promoter में aggression दिख रहा है and that also was reflected into the numbers. Because frankly speaking, इसके numbers अगर आप देखोगे तो एक साल पहले कुछ मार्जिन नहीं बन रहा था बिकॉज उसका कैपेसिटी यूटिलाइजेशन नहीं होता. इट केप्ट ऑन एडिंग मोर क्रेन्स और कैपेसिटी यूटिलाइजेशन बढ़ गया और मार्जिन जब अच्छा हिट होता है तो आई बिलीव कि अगर मार्जिन बहुत सही बन रहा है तो इन दैट केस आपका जो ऑपरेटिंग लेवरेज प्ले आउट होता है तो अर्निंग्स तो आपका बहुत ही ब्लास्ट हो जाएगा अर्निंग्स. सो दैट वाज वन विनर Crown Lifters.
So, Swapnil, would it be fair to say that in your books, the winning formula for a stock is tailwinds, aggressive promoter, a small player in the industry, not necessarily the tier 1 player, maybe tier 2, tier 3 player who's executing well, right?
Right. And, there is a data gap.
Sorry?
Data gap, मतलब ज़्यादा लोगों को नहीं पता है about the story, right? Because
information is not,
Yes. Information is not, information disparity is there and information is not readily available. So, story बाद में लोगों को समझेगा जब वो promoter कौन कॉल कर रहा है.
Right. Yeah. That's true. I mean, a lot of people think that market is very well discovered now. आपको opportunities नहीं मिलेगा इतनी easily. But what people don't realize is still a large segment of the market is reliant on spoon feeding, wherein आपको कोई रिसर्च शेयर कर दे और आप फिर वहां से बिल्ड करो. ग्राउंड वर्क करने जाने के लिए प्राइमरी से देयर आर स्टिल वेरी लॉट ऑफ नंबर ऑफ पीपल दैट आर देयर आर फ्यू. That's true.
I would just like to add, मैंने वही बोला अभी कि जितने भी स्टॉक्स अभी मेरे बिगेस्ट विनर्स रहे, frankly speaking, मैंने उसका इनिशियल वर्क नहीं किया. It was all because of the network. But again, you have to understand कि यार आज आइडियाज ढूंढना बहुत मुश्किल बात नहीं है. ट्विटर आप ओपन करोगे तो हर कोई आइडियाज डिस्कस ही कर रहा है. You need to understand कि कौन सा आइडिया आपको समझ आ रहा है ना. फॉर एग्जाम्पल जैसे मैंने बताया कि आई डोंट अंडरस्टैंड वेरी कॉम्प्लिकेटेड बिजनेसेस, राइट. सो जो बहुत इजी बिजनेस है प्लस उसमें आपको ये भी देखना है आपका हार्डवर्क सही मायने में कहाँ स्टार्ट होता है जब आपको बहुत सारे आइडिया समझ आ रहे हैं. बट देन आप अप्रोच कैसे करोगे कि आप कैसे मैनेजमेंट को मेल लिख के कुछ क्वेश्चंस पूछ लो कि यार मेरे को ये सब चीजें नहीं पता है. मैनेजमेंट को लिंक्डइन पे ढूंढ के उनको टेक्स्ट कर दो तो यू विल बी सरप्राइज. जैसे मैंने बताया कि बहुत सारे मैनेजमेंट खुद से आपको बोलेंगे एंड देन यू आर हैविंग समथिंग व्हिच द अदर इन्वेस्टर्स आर नॉट हैविंग. सो दैट रियली हेल्प्स यू टू बिल्ड द कन्विक्शन इन द स्टोरी.
Great. So that was a very good discussion, Swapnil. A lot of insights. So with each of these podcasts, what we want to do in the end is have a takeaway wherein, if you can share one stock or one industry that is looking interesting to you currently. It does not necessarily have to be the name, even directional inputs of the business and everything you can share.
So I believe the players into tire recycling, business, they're actually looking really good because of this government push on EPR. So EPR is
EPR.
extended producer responsibility, wherein टायर के एंड में बहुत पोल्यूशन होता है, राइट? तो जब हम लोग टायर परचेस करते हैं और जब हम लोग उसको यूज करते हैं तो एंड में जो भी टायर बच गया, राइट, उससे बहुत एनवायरमेंट हजार्ड्स होता है, एनवायरमेंटल हजार्ड्स होता है एंड पोल्यूशन होता है बहुत। तो गवर्नमेंट इज पुशिंग कि आप इसको रिसाइकिल करो और रिसाइकिल करके आपको या तो इसको रिसाइकिल करके सेल करना है ओरिजिनल टायर मैन्युफैक्चरर्स को, या फिर आपको इसके क्रेडिट्स भी मिलेंगे एक्चुअली। तो EPR क्रेडिट्स, राइट? तो EPR क्रेडिट्स इज अ वेरी गुड थीम आई गेस, और इसके बारे में बहुत इंफॉर्मेशन मिलेगी आपको। देयर आर गुड कंपनीज हु आर एक्चुअली डूइंग अ लॉट ऑफ कॉन कॉल्स। फॉर एग्जांपल टीना रबर एंड GPR, ये दो कंपनीज हैं जो बहुत अच्छा, इनके कॉन कॉल अगर आप सुनोगे तो उसमें बहुत कुछ आपको इनपुट्स मिलेंगे अबाउट the industry, right? So I'm not naming these stocks as such to buy because saying that ये stocks के conference call से आपको बहुत अच्छे insights मिलेंगे about the industry को से, and then you can go and figure out which other companies are well discovered.
Yeah. So guys, Swapnil has given you a directional insight of which industry to look at, right? So thank you, Swapnil, for doing this. It was great.